Hey gang, Joyce with Skipping Cass Farms here. It was cold this morning. It was in the 40s and it's warming up into the 70s and it's breezy, and we had a bunch of funny looking clouds this morning and we're supposed to get rain in a couple of days. No, there's no coincidence with that, but anyway, so I wasn't really sure what I was going to do today, and I oftentimes will pray over what I'm going to do. And so one of the things that ended up on my marching orders list, my chore list, was trimming back these 75 willows. Now, it'd been a while. I did the 25 willows a while back, and you can see them over there, and they're starting to bush out on the top pretty nice. But for those of you who didn't get a chance to see that, basically what these willows are, these are all purpurea willows, which is not like a weeping willow. This is a willow that's principally used for weaving, basket weaving. Yeah, basket weaving willow. But it didn't start out that way. Well, yeah, kind of, sort of it did. But it is also a principal source of willow bark as a medicinal. Willow bark? What comes from willow bark? Willow bark was the original source. I'm not sure if I'm saying this right. Salicylic acid, also known as aspirin. Aspirin was originally discovered by doing willow bark tea and that sort of thing. So I decided to plant some willows because it's been a little while now, because I have the creek right there, and I figured, well, that means I got a pretty high local water table, which was true, although it has dropped a number of feet. In the 10-15 years I've been here, it's dropped a good 5 or 10 feet. But I planted them here. I planted them with weed cloth. At the time, I was not had not started my regenerative journey, so I was just going with the advice that the folks that sold me the willow were providing, so that's what I did, not realizing they had just bought the franchise from an older gentleman who probably had forgotten more in his little finger than they would ever know. But you do what you can with what you got, right? And so there was a lady who was is a basket weaver. Trying to think of her name. I apologize. It's escaping me right now. Who's from Denmark and moved to Ireland, I think, and is doing a lot of willow work. I want to say Heather, but I'm not sure. Anyway, she talked about all the harvesting that they did, where they actually did what's called, I can't see the screen here very well, they coppiced it. They cut the willow down to the ground every year. Well, when you cut the willow down to the ground every year, what you're going to get is this kind of growth. Well, that's all well and good, but I'm an old woman with 2 replaced knees. I don't want to be down on the ground all the time, harvesting everything. So I sent her an email, and she said, yes, you can do what's called pollarding. And pollarding is basically just cutting it off, but not at the ground. So if you'll notice, all of mine are about waist high, elbow high, something like that, depending upon how tall you are and how much it's grown. The idea being that over time, it's going to bush out a whole lot less at the bottom here. And it is bushing out less. And you can see that it still has some leaves that are coming out. I can't see very well on the screen because it's so bright. So you're still getting some branches that are coming out. And I'm very late in the season for doing this for these. I've had a number of special projects that have delayed my work in my normal routine per season by several weeks, and everything seems to have come in early, so I'm almost like a month behind, it seems, if not more. But anyway, I digress. So my marching orders were to trim the willows. And as I'm out here this morning, it looks like the young lambs were in here yesterday and the day before. They ate a little bit, but the purpurea is deer resistant. And I think it's deer resistant because it's bitter. Has anybody tasted aspirin? Yeah, it doesn't taste good. So this is what I'm doing. So I'm just doing a chop and drop. I've just got, these are actually a fairly inexpensive pair of just plant shears. If you're not familiar with this brand, ARS, it's a Japanese company, and like the Germans, the Japanese are known for their steel. A little bit different reasons, but these weren't terribly expensive, and having that point like that makes it real easy for getting in and around and close to the base, like right down here, and cutting all of that down. Whoops, where's the base? There's the base. No, that's the wrong one. What am I looking for? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for right there. And like I said, it's kind of hard for me to see the screen because of the bright light. The sunlight's so bright. So I've been working at it maybe an hour. I'm about 2/3, 3/4 done, and then I'll be done for the year. But one of the things that I've also noticed is since last summer when I did my soil test, I've done a number of things to try and improve the nutrition, the chemistry, the bioavailable chemistry in my soil. And there are virtually very, very few bugs on these willows this year. Last year, they were just almost denuded. There were just critters eating all over them. Well, something's laid a couple of eggs right there. I think I'm just going to leave those. Those look like a bigger egg, and there's only 2 of them. I don't want to risk killing something that's going to be a predator instead of a problem. A predator for other bugs. 85% of all the critters out there are more beneficial than they are they are not. Yeah, and so generally I try to keep that in mind. If it's something I recognize that I know is going to be a problem, fine. If it doesn't, I'm not going to do it. I'll just leave that to Providence. So just thought I'd share that. They are growing like weeds. And that's another thing, that's another reason I went with the willow. Because it's long whips. If you want to do basket weaving or make a fence or something like that, all well and good. But this size, shape, and I guess you could even make fishing poles out of it if you wanted to let them get the right size. I guess they use bamboo instead of willow. I'm not sure. I always had fiberglass, but these long, straight, small rods with good nutrition in them are going to be making for me over the next however many years I'm still here. Absolutely awesome charcoal. Pyrolyzed charcoal. I've already got works in place to activate that charcoal, and when it's activated in terms of putting nutrition or biology in the charcoal, it becomes biochar. When you buy biochar online, you're just buying charcoal. It doesn't have any life in it. It doesn't have any chemistry into it. What it does have is the structure preserved because of the way they burned the wood. It's been said that, you don't want to go with anything like a charcoal briquette for a number of reasons. Number one, they're compressed. Number two, there's chemistry involved that you don't want on your place, and it defeats the purpose. But if you take a piece of, if you're familiar with the ancient terra preta, that's basically what we're talking about. If you take about a size section of properly made charcoal, about the size of a charcoal briquette, that's why I mentioned it earlier. Because of the structure, because of the way it burns, you actually have up to 4,000 square feet of surface area. Do you know how many critters can live on 4,000 square feet when the critter itself may only be a micron big? Hello. That's what we're working on. So those kind of things excite me. I'm in the process of adding a new amendment to my recipe list, one for molybdenum and one for boron. And I'm trying to figure out how I can get something chelated with phosphorus, and I'm without buying an amendment from like AEA or somebody like that, because they make good products, but boy, is it expensive. And for a place my size, I don't have the equipment or the resources, the financial resources to really make that kind of thing pay. So once you hit a certain foundation with your chemistry, where everything may not be at the level it needs to be, but everything is pretty well in balance, then you've got something you can really work with. And that's where I've got a three-legged stool, and one leg is real long and one leg is real short. And so I may have to cut off the long leg and make them all short in order to make it a stool that you can use. But once you do that, then you can bring, it's another variation of the saying, a rising tide raises all ships. Once you've got a foundation of good, solid chemistry, then the plants and animals can recycle that and make it more bioavailable and bring more in when they're not fighting calcium versus nitrogen, or calcium versus phosphorus, or magnesium versus calcium ratios. Because if those ratios are off, it's like having a kitchen sink with the water running and the drain open. You can't fill it up because it's going out as fast as it's coming in. I'll give you a visual, simple example right here. If you look right there, that bare soil on the end of my garden is strawberry blonde. Okay? Over the winter, it was dark milk chocolate. Why is it now strawberry blonde? Because calcium is low, very, very low in my soil. And so is carbon. So is phosphorus. So why do I have strawberry blonde again? Because I don't have any nitrogen in my soil. If I don't have any nitrogen in my soil, I can't keep carbon in my soil. And so it's gone from chocolate back to strawberry blonde because the nitrogen, the carbons come out of the soil because it can't stay in the soil because it's not in balance with the nitrogen. So it tends to come out of the soil and go into the air. You need to have carbon to nitrogen balance of about 24-1. So, but it's all a juggling act. It's like, spinning plates. There's only so many plates you can spin before one falls. But you can keep a good number of them spinning. And that's what I'm doing. So, my mouth runneth over, as usual. I do apologize. My videos are not very stimulating visually, I'm afraid. But hopefully the information is helpful. And I'm going to take a minute break here, get me a drink of water. I'm going to finish this chore up, and then I've got some sheet metal to take off that trailer and clean up and stack, and then we'll move on to the next chore. It's kind of windy. I've tried to keep my hand over the mic, so hopefully the sound isn't too bad. Yeah, I do have a little bit of mustard. Not too much. Not like I used to. This place used to be full of mustard and dandelions and Scottish thistles and daisies, like the ones that are right over there. Why are they not here anymore? They're right there. They're not here anymore because those are all indicator species of compaction. Either due to chemical imbalance, which low calcium would be part of that, or bad structure, low biology, all of those things will add to it. But I've added enough organics back into the soil and got enough earthworms back into the soil that those seeds don't germinate anymore. It's just amazing how the whole ecosystem, soil web, as Elaine Ingham calls it, works. So, with that, gang, I will say blessings for the day, and whatever you do, just keep chasing your dream.